Park, Nehru Park are venues that are iconic and have cultural heritage written all over them. Um, no city can be complete without its religious places. And Ghalib, a lot of people call Ghalib that he was non-religious, but he was assimilative of religious ideas. He may not have called himself religious. So we have Nizamuddin and many other dargahs. Delhi is a city that is interested in all the pleasures life in a big city has to offer, whether it's good art, whether it's eating, whether it's entertainment, whether it's sports. The pro wrestling league happened here. So in my view, just to sum up my introductory remarks, Ghalib was a poet beyond his years. His ideas were quite progressive, and his philosophy of life was through tolerance and acceptance. The reason I said it's the perfect time to discuss Ghalib is because we need both. In the current discourse, whether in politics, media, tolerance and acceptance is missing. And my friends who know Ghalib much better than me and who are more into culture than me tell me there was a time when there'd be 6 poets on a stage and one poet would leave his poetry and say, oh, your poetry is better, let me recite that. People were so gracious. I think we need those times back. Also, for Ghalib, his Shahar-e-aarzoo was embracing each other's differences and coexisting. It was in accepting different cultures. It was in accepting people as they were and not reprimanding them for their beliefs and their differences. His perfect society had freedom of speech and understanding of opposite points of view. So really, I would like to say that while Delhi has become a city of desire, for me, it was at one point of time. For many people who come to Delhi, it is a city of desire because it helps them reach their dreams. But the ideal city of desire that Ghalib imagined, we are a long way from there. So let me recite a couplet from Ghalib. And umr bhar hum यूं ही गलती करते रहे गालिब, धूल चेहरे पे थी और हम आईना साफ करते रहे. So I think when I come from the media industry, we in the media industry are a mirror to the world. But I think we in the media industry need to look within. There is a fight for the soul of this country happening. There is a fight for the soul of this city happening. We in the media have to play a better role. We have to look inwards because somewhere we've become less brave, less honest, and less detailed, because journalism is about facts, it's not about opinions. So I would like to say that the city that Ghalib imagined, we're long from the city that he imagined, and I hope this discourse, this discussion, this cultural confluence helps in getting us there.
दोस्तों, मैं थोड़ा अलग किस्म की बात करने जा रही हूँ. कुछ अपने बारे में कहूँगी, कुछ इस शहर के बारे में कहूँगी, कुछ पुराने शहरों के बारे में कहूँगी जो नहीं रहे. हम सभी जानते हैं कि दिल्ली 7 बार बसी और 7 बार उजड़ी, और मैंने इन उजड़ी बसी दिल्लियों के बारे में सिर्फ पढ़ा सुना नहीं, मैंने उनके खंडरात में अपना पूरा बचपन बिताया, उनमें भटकते हुए या घूमते हुए या टहलते हुए, जो भी आप कहना चाहें. वो यूं कि मेरे पिताजी का ख्याल था कि अगर आप तवारीख के खंडरात देख लें और बुलंद इमारतों के खंडरात देख लें एक बार, और सिलसिलेवार तारीखवार बचपन में ही देख लें, तो आप ज़िंदगी के उतार चढ़ाव समझ जाते हैं और फिर आप बेतुकी ज़िंदगी को भी कुछ सलीके से जीने के काबिल बन जाते हैं. इसलिए हर रविवार, हर इतवार जब हमारी सहेलियाँ गेलॉर्ड और वॉल्गा में जैम सेशन सुन रही होती थीं, हम इन खंडरात में भटक रहे होते थे अपने पिताजी के साथ. उस वक्त हमें बहुत गुस्सा आता था, और हम ये तो मैं नहीं जानती कि हम काबिल बने कि नाकाबिल बने, मगर ये ज़रूर हुआ कि पिताजी की 3 बेटियां, उन्होंने मन का शहर बसा लिया, मन के भीतर शहर बसा लिया. उन्होंने खंडरात रोशन कर लिए और बुलंद इमारतें खाक में मिला दी. वो उम्मीद और नाउमीदी के बीच में एक मिलान बना लिया उन्होंने, और इस तरह उन्होंने गुज़र बसर की. कहने का मतलब ये है कि हम 3 बहनें लेखक बन गई. अब ज़िंदगी के हम कितने काबिल बने मैं नहीं जानती, मगर कुछ लोगों को हमने नाकाबिल ज़रूर बनाया. मेरी नाकामी कुछ ज़्यादा रही, उसमें कुछ इजाफा हुआ मेरे लेखक होने में, क्योंकि इन खंडरात के साथ पिताजी ने हमें एक बहुत मुकम्मल शहर से मिलाया। शहर इसलिए कह रही हूँ कि बतौर लेखक हम इंसान को शहर और शहर को इंसान समझने लगे। ये शहर, इस शहर का नाम था गांधी। मैं उन बहुत कम जिंदा लोगों में से हूँगी जो गांधी के प्रेयर मीटिंग्स में, प्रार्थना सभाओं में जाते रहे हैं। शायद ही यहाँ इस हॉल में कोई होगा जो गांधी जी के प्रार्थना सभा में गया होगा। हम तीसरे चौथे दिन वहाँ ले जाए जाते थे। शुरू में ले जाए गए, बाद में हमें चस्का लग गया और एक नशा सा हो गया उनकी प्रार्थना सभा में जाने का। आप लोग शायद जानते होंगे कि उन दिनों उनकी प्रार्थना सभा में जो वो प्रवचन देते थे, उसका सीधा प्रसारण रेडियो पर हुआ करता था रोज़। अब शायद आर्काइव्स में वो आपको मिल जाए। मैं जब गांधी जी ने अपना आखिरी उपवास किया, तब मैं उनकी खाट के पास से गुजरी थी। ये एक ऐसा रोमांचक अनुभव है जो मैं कभी भुलाए नहीं भूल सकती। मेरे लिए वो दिल्ली शहर था। खटोला सा था जिस पर वो लेटे थे और एक नवजात शिशु से वो दिख रहे थे, एकदम छोटे बच्चे जैसे। कम से कम मुझे ऐसे दिखे थे। मेरी खुद उम्र 9 बरस थी। जब उनकी प्रार्थना सभा में बम फटा, तब भी मैं वहाँ थी, मगर जब उन्हें गोली लगी तब मैं वहाँ नहीं थी। इसलिए कहते हूँ कि पिताजी की तमाम कोशिशों के बावजूद तवारीख को बनते देखने से मैं महरूम रह गई। वैसे रहते हम नई दिल्ली में थे। ये शाहजहांबाद वाली नई दिल्ली नहीं, ये बंगाली मार्केट वाली नई दिल्ली, जो पूरी तरह से बाबुओं की नगरी थी, साफ़ सुथरी। और सबसे बड़ी बात ये थी कि वहाँ मच्छर नहीं थे। वहाँ डीडीटी इस कदर छिड़का जाता था कि जब तक मच्छर डीडीटी से इम्यून नहीं हो गए, वहाँ मच्छर नहीं थे। और भी वहाँ कुछ नहीं था, तांगे चलते थे और शहर की रफ्तार भी तांगे की तरह ही थी। खरामा खरामा चलता था शहर, कुछ ख़ास और वहाँ हुआ नहीं करता था। मगर 1943 के बाद वहाँ सब कुछ बदल गया, क्योंकि जो पंजाब से लोग आए हिंदुस्तान, वो इतने जीवट के लोग थे कि आते ही उन्होंने तरह तरह के कारोबार शुरू कर दिए। हमारे घर के बिल्कुल पास एक मार्केट खुला जिसका नाम ही रेफ्यूजी मार्केट था, और इसमें कोई हीन भाव नहीं था। कोई भी ये बड़े फ़ख्र से कहा जाता था कि ये रेफ्यूजी मार्केट है। उसके साथ ही आप लोग जानते ही हैं, सब लोग जनपथ पर इतना बड़ा बाज़ार बना, शंकर मार्केट बना, उसी तरह से फिर कमला मार्केट, रजौरी मार्केट, जगह जगह उन्होंने बाज़ार बनाए। और वो बाज़ार इतना चल निकले कि हम पता नहीं कहाँ क्या करते थे, वो सब बैठ गया। सब जगह उन्हीं की धूम हो गई। शायद इसीलिए तब दिल्ली शहर कुछ पंजाब का हिस्सा लगने लगा। मुझे याद है कि जब शुरू शुरू में दरियागंज को दरियागंज कहते हमने सुना, तो हमें बड़ी कोफ्त होती थी और हमें लगता था कि वो हमारी ज़ुबान कहाँ चली गई जो हम बोला करते थे दिल्ली में। मगर बहुत जल्दी हमें गुमान हो गया कि ये जो नए बाशिंदे आए हैं वही असली दिल्ली हैं, और कारोबारी दिल्ली ही एक बड़ा ऐसा आरजू का शहर बनता जा रहा है। मैं जब ज़्यादा हो जाए तो रोक दीजिए। दिल्ली वो शहर है जहाँ लोग आरजू लेकर आते हैं। दिल्ली वालों की तो आरजू बहुत छोटी छोटी है कि काश गर्मी कम पड़े, काश डेंगू कम फैले, काश सड़कों पर पानी कम खड़ा रहे, काश हम जहाँ पहुँचना चाहते हैं वहाँ पहुँच जाएं, ट्रैफिक जैम में ना फंस जाएं। मगर बाहर से लोग दिल्ली बहुत आरजू लेकर आते हैं। गरीब गुरबा तो सिर्फ ये आरजू लेके आते हैं कि एक नौकरी मिल जाए और रोटी, कपड़ा और झुग्गी, मकान में उसको नहीं कहूँगी, एक छत मिल जाए, चाहे पॉलीथीन की ही हो। इतनी सी आरजू लेकर आते हैं और वो भी कभी कभी हासिल नहीं होती। मगर बाकी लोग बड़ी बड़ी आरजू लेकर आते हैं। कोई अदीब बनना चाहता है, कोई मुसव्विर बनना चाहता है, कोई अखबार नवीस बनना चाहता है, और सबसे ज़्यादा बनना चाहते हैं नेता। राजनेता न बने तो पिछलग्गू ही सही, मगर राजनीति में बड़ी दिलचस्पी होती है उन लोगों की जो दिल्ली आते हैं, और बड़ी जल्दी वो चाहे आपके मीडिया में हो या हमारे जैसे लेखक हो, वो सब राजनीति करते हुए नज़र आते हैं। राजनीति ही राजनीति दिल्ली में होती नज़र आती है। सुनते हैं कि मोहब्बत की आरजू लेके भी लोग दिल्ली आते हैं। हालांकि इसमें कुछ अचरज होता है, क्योंकि आजकल तो अगर आशिक बाग बगीचे में बैठे हैं तो उनको फटकार पड़ने लगती है, लोग आके उनको भगाने लगते हैं। दिल्ली में आजकल जो बड़े लोग हैं वो हर बात से एतराज़ रखते हैं, मोहब्बत से भी एतराज़ रखते हैं। मगर मोहब्बत की आरजू लेकर लोग दिल्ली आते हैं, बात मुझे जापान में जाकर पता चली। जापान में मुझे कुछ जोड़े ऐसे मिले जिन्होंने प्रेम विवाह दिल्ली में आकर किया था, दिल्ली वासियों से नहीं, आपस में। मैंने पूछा, वो मुझे एक जापानी महिला ने कहा कि बात चल तो निकली थी टोक्यो में, मगर बनी दिल्ली जाकर। तो मैंने कहा क्यों भाई, दिल्ली क्यों गए आप प्रेम विवाह करने? कहने लगे कि वहाँ की हवा में कुछ ऐसी बात है कि मोहब्बत को असरदार बनाती है। मैंने कहा भाई हमारी हवा में तो जहर है, जहर ही सुना है कि दिल्ली की हवा में तो जहर है, तो ये भी कुछ ऐसी बात है कि जहराब उगाता है मुझे, कि जहर नसीम बहारें ले आती है मोहब्बत मुझ तक। तो लगता है दिल्ली में जो जहर है वो भी बड़ा कारगर है। मगर मुझे एक बात ज़रूर लगती है कि आजकल जब जो आशिक लोग जाते कहाँ हैं, सारे बाग बगीचे तो मॉल बन गए। आपने बताया नेहरू पार्क है, लोधी गार्डन भी है, बड़े पालतू से हैं। हमारे ज़माने में कुत्सिया बाग होता था, रोशनारा बाग होता था, और सबसे बड़ी चीज़ तो होती थी रिज पर लवर्स लेन। आप लोगों ने कभी सुना है? रिज पर बाकायदा एक लवर्स लेन होती थी, वहाँ बड़े कटीले बेर उगा करते थे। उसके बीच से गुजरना, यानी अब मोहब्बत करते हैं तो कहीं से तो गुजरेंगे, आग से ना गुजरे तो कटीले बेरों के बीच से तो गुजरिए। बाद में उसको काट छांट करके बुद्ध जयंती पार्क बना दिया गया, जो फिर बड़ा पालतू सा पार्क था। मगर हमारी जवानी के दिनों में हमें वही नसीब हुआ, क्योंकि लवर्स लेन तो तब तक ख़त्म हो गया था। तो दिल्ली में लोग बड़ी बड़ी आरजू लेकर आते हैं, और कहाँ तक वो परवान चढ़ती है, उनकी आरजू हासिल होती है, ये मालूम नहीं। मगर मैं ज़रूर, जो अनुराग जी ने कहा वही बात मैं कहूँगी कि टॉलरेंस की बहुत कमी है दिल्ली में आजकल। आप मोहब्बत करें तो लोगों को एतराज़ है, आप अदीब हों तो कुछ लिखें तो लोगों को एतराज़ है, अब अखबार नवीस हैं तो लिखें तो एतराज़ है, एतराज़ ही एतराज़ है। मतलब अगर आपने कुछ लिखा और उस पर किसी को एतराज़ नहीं हुआ तो मान कर चलिए कि आपने बहुत ही रद्दी लिखा होगा। तो मैं तो यही उम्मीद करती हूँ कि अगले वर्षों में लोग ऐसा ऐसा लिखें और ऐसे ऐसे चित्र बनाएं, ऐसी ऐसी फिल्में बनाएं, मतलब बढ़िया फिल्में, पद्मावत जैसी फिल्म नहीं कि लोग कामा कहाँ उस पर एतराज़ करे चले जा रहे हैं इसलिए वो मशहूर होती जा रही है। मैं सचमुच ऐसी फिल्में बनाएं जो एतराज़ करने लायक हों, सचमुच ऐसा लिखें जो एतराज़ करने लायक हो। तो मैं मानती हूँ कि दिल्ली की रूह जो गालिब के ज़माने में थी वो कुछ वापस आ जाएगी।
I think one of the curious features about so much of the love poetry to Delhi that's been written, and also not just the poetry but the letters, in so much of it's written sort of retrospectively, looking back at the golden age, whether it's the 17th, 18th, or 19th or 20th century. There are descriptions of Bernier as early as the 1680s arriving, and Aurangzeb has gone off to the Deccan and taken the nobility with him, and he says Delhi is like a desert. This enormous city that rose from nothing in 20 years, grew to be the size of London, Paris, Rome, and Lisbon combined, sort of vanished when Aurangzeb went to the Deccan, and just empty streets were left. And then you get that succession of disasters, Nadir Shah, Shah Gandhi, 2, 3 times, and you get this wonderful series of poets, most famously Mir Fahimia, but also Arda and so on, always describing Delhi in retrospect, always looking back. And I mean, forgive me for doing this in English, my daughter is horrible. Famous line allegedly said by Mir, according to Arda, said by Mir on arrival in Lucknow, which I know Asaf Faruqi doesn't believe he ever said it, but for some reason it was. Why do you mock at me and ask yourselves, where in the world I come from, Easterners? There was a city famed throughout the world where dwelt the chosen spirits of the age. Delhi, its name, fairest among the fair. Fate looted it and laid it desolate, and to that ravaged city I belong. And then there's other wonderful verses. Here where the thorn grows, spreading over mounds of dust and ruins, these eyes of mine once saw gardens blossoming in their spring. These eyes saw only yesterday house after house, where here and there a ruined wall or doorway stands. Yet Jahanabad is beautiful still, Hyderabad is beautiful still. The 7 climes are in its every lane. Does Delhi have its equal anywhere? Then you get a whole another round of regretful love lyrics to Delhi after 1857, after the Great Uprising, when Delhi's empty, completely terrible, the worst, probably, colonial massacre in the whole history of colonialism in India took place in Delhi in 1857 to 8. And Ghalib, one of the few survivors, writes, the whole city has become a desert. Delhi people still pride themselves on the Delhi language. What pathetic faith. My dear man, where the Urdu bazaar is no more, where is Urdu? By God, Delhi is no more a city, but a camp, a cantonment. No fort, no bazaars, no war horses. 4 things kept Delhi alive. The fort, the daily crowd at the Jama Masjid, the weekly walk to the Yamuna Bridge, and the yearly fair of the flower men. None of these survives, so how could Delhi survive? Yes, there was once a city of that name in the realm of India. And then, of course, you have partition. And another whole literature is generated by the destruction of Delhi yet again in 1947. And I'd just like to end by reading to you a very moving meeting I had before he died with, I think, the greatest novelist of Delhi to this day, including Arundhati Roy, is Ahmed Ali. And Twilight in Delhi, this great master. Anyone in the audience, I'm sure all of you read it. By any chance any of you haven't read it, go out and buy it in Bari Sons tomorrow. It's the most wonderful novel of old Delhi. I ran in 1992, I ran Ahmed Ali to ground in Karachi. And before I shut up, I just read you this account of meeting Ahmed Ali in exile. And again, it's exactly the same tone as you'd have had from Mir, from Ghalib, the sense of regret of something lost. Ahmed Ali was there to meet us. He wore severe black-trimmed glasses, above which sprouted a pair of thin grey eyebrows. He slurred his consonants and had the slightly limp wrist and effete manner of one who modelled himself on a Bloomsbury original. For a man once seen as a champion of Delhi's culture, a bulwark of Eastern civilization against the seepage of Western influence, Ahmed Ali now cut an unexpectedly English figure. With his clipped accent and tweed jacket and old leather elbow patches, he could have passed off successfully as a clubland character in a Noel Coward play. But despite his comfortable, well-to-do appearance, Ahmed Ali was an angry man. Over the hours I spent with him, he spluttered and spat like a well-warmed frying pan. The first occasion was when I inadvertently mentioned he was now a citizen of Pakistan. Poppycock, pulled at that, he said. I was always against Jinnah, never had any interest in Pakistan. Steady on, said Shahar-e-aarzoo, his friend. The devil, said Ali. Pakistan's not a country, never was. It's a damned hodgepodge. It's not your country or my country. He was shouting at Shahar-e-aarzoo now. It's a country of a damn bunch of feudal lords, robbers, bloody murderers, kidnappers. The outburst spluttered out into silence. But I ventured, didn't you opt for Pakistan? Surely you could have stayed in Delhi had you wanted to. The outburst, there was another explosion. I opted for Pakistan, I did not. I was visiting professor in Nanking when the blasted partition took place. The bloody swine wouldn't let me go home, so what do you mean? I went and saw the Indian ambassador in Peking. Bloody swine said I couldn't return. Said it was a question of Hindu against Muslim and there was nothing he could do. I was caught in China and had nowhere else to go. Careful, said Shahar-e-aarzoo, seeing the state his friend had worked himself up into. So how did you end up in Karachi? I asked. When my salary in Nanking was stopped, I found my way to some friends in Hong Kong. They put me on an amphibious plane to Karachi. Where else could I have gone if I couldn't go back to Delhi? Ali had ceased to quiver with rage and was now merely very cross. I never opted for Pakistan, he said, gradually regaining his poise. The civilization I belong to, the civilization of Delhi, came into being through the mingling of 2 different cultures, Hindu and Muslim. That civilization flourished for 1,000 years undisturbed until certain people came along and denied that that great mingling had taken place. Views like that can hardly have made you popular here, I said. They never accepted me in Pakistan, damn it. I've been weeded out. They don't publish my books. They've deleted my name. When copies of Twilight in Delhi arrived at the Karachi customs from India, they sent them back. Said the book was about the forbidden city across the border. They implied that the culture was foreign and subversive. Ah! In that case, I said, couldn't you go back to Delhi? Couldn't you reapply for Indian citizenship? Now, no country is my country, said Ali. Delhi is dead. The city that was, the language, the culture, everything I knew is finished. It's true, said Shahar-e-aarzoo. I went back 13 years after partition. Already, everything was very different. I stayed in a new hotel, which I only later realized we built on top of a graveyard where several of my friends were buried. In my mahalla, everyone used to know me, but suddenly I was a stranger. My haveli was split into 10 parts and occupied by Punjabis. My wife's house had become a temple. Delhi was no longer the abode of the Delhiwala. Even the walls had changed. It was very depressing. Before partition, said Ali, Delhi was a unique city. Although it was already very poor, still it preserved its high culture. That high culture filtered down even to the streets. Everyone was part of it. Even the milkman could sing Mir and Dar. The prostitutes would sing Persian songs and recite Hafiz. They may not have been able to read and write, but they could remember the poets and the language, said Shahar-e-aarzoo. You cannot conceive how chaste Delhi Urdu was. And how rich, said Ali. Every mahalla had its own expressions. The language used by our men was quite distinct from that used by the women. Now the language has shrunk. So many words are lost. We talked for an hour about the Delhi of their childhood and youth. We talked of the eunuchs and the Sufis and the pigeons and the poets, of the monsoon picnics in Meroli and the jinn who fell in love with Ahmed Ali's aunt. We talked of the sweetmeat shops that stayed open until 3 in the morning, the sorcerers who could cast spells over a whole mahalla, the possessed women who used to run vertically up the Zanana walls, and the miraculous cures effected by Hakim Ajmal Khan. The old men swam together through great oceans of nostalgia before finally coming ashore on a strand of melancholy. But all of that is no more, said Ali. All that made Delhi special has been uprooted and dispersed. Now it is a carcass without a soul, said Shahar-e-aarzoo. I am a fossil, said Ali, and Shahar-e-aarzoo is on his way to becoming a fossil. But nevertheless, I insisted, if you both love Delhi so much, wouldn't you love to see it just one more time? I will never see that town again, said Ali. Once I was invited to give some lectures in Australia. There was a mechanical fault and the plane was diverted to Delhi. The plane landed, but I refused to get out. I said, I'm not getting out. I don't have to. You call your damn chairman. I'm not putting my foot on that soil which once was sacred to me and now has been desecrated. They got the entire staff of the airport there to get me out, but I didn't move. How could I? How could I revisit that which once was mine and now was no longer mine? When they asked why I was behaving as I was, I simply sat in my seat and quoted Mir Taki Mir at them. What matters it, O breeze, if now has come the spring, when I have lost them both, the garden and my nest. What happened, I asked. The swine were all Punjabis, said Ali. Tell you the truth, I don't think they understood a bloody word I said.
Well, one of the paradoxes, I mean, do we have time for some more discussion of Delhi, and I think all cities in general, is that they resurrect themselves in some way, you know, and in fact, there's a very famous urbanist who says that cities start as a metropolis, become a megapolis, then a cosmopolis, and then a necropolis. So, and then the cycle starts again. So, what is it that you think, I think I can ask this question to all of you, what is it that you think that the different Delhis had which made them resurrect themselves? Clearly, there was something very special about Shahjahanabad. There was a very authentic, integrated culture, you know, which we can talk a little more. But for instance, the Delhi after partition that you mentioned and talked about, what do you think, or Anurag, that drives the city to resurrect itself or to become the so-called Shahar-e-aarzoo of their time?
I'll tell you, since she talked about her childhood and she talked about her experiences with her father, I'll tell you what was my impression of Delhi. I've been coming to Delhi for 40 years. Last 18 years I live in Delhi. And we didn't see Gurgaon as different from Delhi. It's different from Delhi. But I grew up in old Gurgaon. So my impression, I'll answer your question, my impression, we would look forward to, my Masis lived in Delhi, my Mamas lived in Delhi. And we had 4 or 5 kind of planned trips every year to Delhi. So one was shopping for books in Naisara, right? We would come there and we would buy books. I have an older sister, my sister and me would come with my parents and we'd buy books. And then we'd look forward to the food. Then around family weddings or something, we'd come to Karol Bagh and we'd look forward to eating at Roshni Kulfi, right? Most Delhi kids now know only Mohits, they don't know Roshni. Then we would come once a year where my mom and dad just take me to, historical places. And these happened for 15 years of my life, right? So Delhi had, at the 4th were taking us to places like, which were religious or were places of governance, showing us the president's house from outside and eating around India Gate. So Delhi offered everything. As a child to me, it offered great food. It offered stories around monuments. It offered, a bigger city certainly, even then it offered the charm of a big city without feeling we were in a big city. There was something intimate about Delhi. And last but not the least, when I was young, not that I'm not now, but I was more young and impressionable. I always thought about whether I would settle down in Delhi or would I, a lot of my classmates who went to business school with me, went to Bombay, or would I work out of Delhi? So Delhi was very aspirational, having a house in Delhi, so it has stayed. I talked to my young friends who are from smaller cities. So Delhi is this melting pot. I know there's always this comparison between Delhi and Bombay, and many magazines have done these covers on Delhi versus Bombay. But I don't think you should compare Delhi and Bombay. I don't think it's a fair comparison. So just to where we are in that evolutionary phase that you talk about of city, I think Delhi is unique because it is the melting point of culture, and it provides an opportunity to view the world. Delhi is in some way representative of the country. Delhi is in some way representative of the world. We can find many, we can find some cultures of almost all cities in some parts of Delhi. So I don't think we should be pessimistic about Delhi, right? I don't think, I still stay optimistic about Delhi, and I'm not just talking of Lutyens Delhi. I'm talking of Delhi in the way Delhi was 40 years back. At least that's the Delhi I know. So I think Delhi is evolved into a super city, which does take into account the religion, the culture, the progress, and most importantly, it is very futuristic. Delhi is always planning for the future. Whether it gets there or not is another. But since last 30 years, I can say I've met my friends in Delhi who are always planning for the future. There's something about Delhi where you're always planning for the future. So Delhi is a city which is a city of desire because it is always planning for the future. So I think it is still evolving. It has a long way to go.
मैं समझती हूँ कि दिल्ली बहुत सारे गांव इकट्ठा मिलके दिल्ली बनाते हैं. दिल्ली कोई एक शहर नहीं है, एक तस्वीर नहीं है. अब वो गांव का जो आपने कहा कि हर कल्चर यहाँ मिलती है, तो अपने अपने गांव में रहते हैं लोग और हर तरह का खाना मिलता है, हर तरह की जुबान मिलती है, हर तरह की संस्कृति मिलती है, हर तरह का साहित्य मिलता है, सब कुछ मिलता है दिल्ली में. मैं रोज सुबह उठकर सोचती हूँ कि मैं आखिर दिल्ली में क्यों रहती हूँ. यहाँ के मौसम है कि हर वक्त बदलता रहता है. तो वही तो असली बात है कि यहाँ सब कुछ बदलता रहता है. आप कभी ये नहीं कह सकते कि कल आज जैसा होगा, और वो बदल रहा है, वो बेहतर भी बन रहा है, बदतर होता है, फिर बेहतर होता है। लोग यहाँ के बड़े जुझारू हैं। असल में बात ये है, वो छोड़ते नहीं, जितने यहाँ खंडरात हैं उतनी ही यहाँ बुलंद इमारतें हैं। मगर ये जरूर मैं कहूँगी कि आप जरा बहुत ही किसी योजना के तहत नहीं बढ़ रहा। नई दिल्ली 5 दिशाओं में बढ़ रही है, 4 दिशाएं तो जमीनी और एक आसमान की तरफ, और जमीन पर जितनी इमारतें बन रही है उतना कचरा बढ़ रहा है। इस तरफ से हम आंखें नहीं मूंद सकते हैं, उसका कुछ करना होगा। जब तक उसका हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे तो कुछ हमारा मुस्तकबिल बनने वाला नहीं है। मगर आपने जो आदिल साहब का पढ़ा वो तो रोंगटे खड़ा करने वाला था कि इतना भी नॉस्टैल्जिया क्या भाई कि जमीन पर पाँव ही नहीं रख रहे हो। हर चीज मिटती है और हर चीज दोबारा बनती है। अगर आप मिटे हुए के लिए ही रोते रहो, मैंने कहा ना मेरा तो पूरा बचपन ही खंडरात के साथ बीता, और जब पूरा बचपन खंडरात दिखाया पिताजी ने तो मेरी समझ में आया कि उन्हें भी रोशन किया जा सकता है और उनके भीतर आशिकी ढूंढी जा सकती है, मोहब्बत ढूंढी जा सकती है, और फिर इमारतें बनाई जा सकती हैं। आप इमारत बनाइए, बुलंद इमारत बनाइए दोबारा। जुबान जरूर बहुत बिगड़ गई, ये तो कहना पड़ेगा। अब हम यहाँ 4 जन बैठे हैं, खाली मैं हिंदुस्तानी में गुफ्तगू कर रही हूँ, बाकी सब अंग्रेजी बोल रहे हैं। तो मुझे नहीं मालूम कितने लोग यहाँ मेरी बात समझ रहे हैं। आप लोग हिंदी समझते हैं? अच्छा, अभी खाने की बात हुई तो उस पर एक पूछती, क्या आप निमिष नाम की मिठाई जानते हैं? निमिष नाम की मिठाई का नाम सुना है? वो लखनऊ में भी होती थी, बनारस में उसको मलाइये कहते हैं। उसकी खासियत ये है कि दूध को आप ऊपर जो उसका पेन आता है उसको उठाते जाते हैं, उसको जमा कर लेते हैं और सर्दियों में ये बनती है। और वो दौलत की चाट भी कहते हैं उसको, चांदनी चौक में दौलत की चाट कहते हैं उसको। तो वो निमिष भर ही रहती है। निमिष का मतलब क्या है? निमिष भर, बस निमिष इतनी ही देर वो रहती है। निमिष क्योंकि सकील शब्द है इसलिए उसको दौलत की चाट और मलइये वगैरह कहने लगे। मगर आजकल वो बने कैसे? आप उसको छत पर रखेंगे तो उसमें तो मिट्टी इतनी गिरेगी कि वो फिर खाने लायक नहीं रहेगी सुबह तक। तो ये मिट्टी गिरना और ये जो हवा में जहर है और ये जो पर्यावरण का हाल बन रहा है उसको जरूर हमें दिल्ली में कुछ करना होगा, वरना हम सिर्फ गीतों में ही दिल्ली को याद करते रहेंगे। असल दिल्ली, जमीनी दिल्ली बिल्कुल उसके कहीं पासन आएगी नहीं, भले हमारे मन में उसके लिए इतना प्यार हो कि हम दिल्ली में ही रहते चले जाएं।
All these lovely talk of sweets. The Guntiwala closed, what it was 5 years ago, the sweet shop which Shah Jahan's elephants would stop on the way and take. A tragic loss of continuity of the city. Why does the city keep resurrecting? It's very interesting, and I can't think of any other country where you have this sort of yo-yo effect to the plains of Delhi. Indraprasth starts here under Puranikila. Then it sort of goes off by the Rajputs are ruling this area from Ajmer. It comes back in 1192. It stays the capital of North India, the example of manners, right through the different sultanates. Briefly, the Lodis go to Agra, comes back. Then some of the early Mughals go off to Akbar, goes off to Fatehpur Sikri and Agra, Jahangir. But they always maintain Delhi in the descriptions, the time of Jahangir, of the amount of money he's spending maintaining the monuments of Delhi, because it's seen even then already as a kind of sacred site, a centre not just of culture and a centre of politics, but also has a spiritual aspect to it, both the shrines, the Qadam Sharif, the different saints, Nizamuddin, all these different things. And then the British try to take the power off to Calcutta, again, 1911, back it comes again, and it's remained here ever since. So I think probably it's positioning, vis-a-vis you control the East, control the West, you've got overlord the passes from the Himalayas, and it's a natural place to rule India from. And so all these different attempts to move power elsewhere have always failed, and it's always found its way back eventually to Delhi. And there is something, I think, in the soil here, which is it has sort of directed the manners, the cultural forms, the courtly culture of the whole of West India. I think it's a place we should be very proud of, and are not proud of enough.
Can I ask William something? William, I want to ask you this, since you talked about the fact that it's no longer the Washington of India, it has become the New York of India. And it's debatable, but do you think it will become the Silicon Valley of India, the reason I ask is that, I think of Silicon Valley as solving the problems of the world, innovating, thinking beyond itself, right? Almost everything that has come out of Silicon Valley, not for the Silicon Valley, it's for the rest of the world. So, do you think Delhi will ever become that city of desire in the sense of Silicon Valley?
I think, in a sense, Delhi obviously has many technical wonders going on here, but there's no question that Bangalore and Hyderabad are the two places where the software industry in this country are currently based.
They're sweatshops in the world. They're not really innovation.
I think there's great sophistication.
That's what I think.
No. Innovation is there in Bangalore, definitely. And you ask them to come to Delhi, all of them will refuse. I remember my son came back from America and he wanted to start the company in Delhi. And because most of the boys, the bright boys, were South Indian, and they said, no way are they coming to Delhi and facing its weather. So Bangalore has one great plus point, that it is not the power center. It is not the power center for politics. It has its own dirty politics, of course, but it doesn't try to rule the country. And I think that is very important for innovation. If you want technical innovation, intellectual innovation, then you should not be a power center.
I think also the simple fact is that there's a huge Tam-Bram population.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Naipaul did an analysis when he went to Infosys, and he found that 80% of the directors, on an entirely meritocratic basis, were from this tiny one community, because they're just so good at figures.
And they all said not
astrological
when they are.
calculations.
Because you remember Gurgaon was going to be built as a Japanese technical city.
Ahead of Gurgaon.
A little ahead of
IMT.
Yeah, and it never happened. It never happened because as he says, the Tam-Rams. I can't say that because they'll accuse me of being casteist and racist and whatnot. But because these bright boys just refused to come to Gurgaon, so the Gurgaon thing never happened. And that is one thing you can't fight against. That is genetic.
When we talked, you mentioned everybody has been harking about the golden times or the golden past or some glorious time that Delhi had, and that there has been a sort of a decline even today. But the thing is that the unique thing about Delhi that I think that was there of that gold, Shahjahanabad particularly, because we talking Ghalib ki Delhi, was that we were able to shift our attention from consolidation of power to consolidation of culture. Because of which, even when the government was very effete, when the king was helpless, he was able to support and sponsor music, support and sponsor. Muhammad Shah Rangila's quote was all about, the shift of sponsorship into culture, the diversion into culture. Shah Jahan had the money to build, but when the Mughal emperors had no money to build, then they put whatever little they had on intangible culture. And which is what gave rise to when Urdu came, from the Deccans, after Wali and Shiraz, Aurangabadi and all that into Delhi, it blossomed because there was so much of patronage. So do you think that there has been a decline in cultural space in Delhi? Because everybody seems to be bemoaning all the time that, while we are doing this festival, but there's a decline of cultural space.
As I said earlier, there's no comparison between Delhi now and 20 years ago. There's more universities here and around here. The existing ones are thriving. JNU is still the major radical center in India. All these other new universities, Ambedkar and so on, coming up. I think 25 new English language publishers alone have settled in Delhi in the last decade. As you say, art galleries, it is now, despite itself, a very cultured city. And I think it is attracting the brightest brains. As you said, your technical friends go to Bangalore, your business friends with the MBAs go and live in Bombay, but this is now the centre of media, it's the centre of the arts, it's the centre of the art fair, it's the publishing industry, it's the centre of the media, and I'm sure many people in this room will work in one of those fields, and the reason you're sitting here is because you are cultured.
I just would like to respond to that. One, there's a research across, it was done, I think, in Harvard or one of the Ivy League schools, is that cities that patronize arts and culture, the real estate values in those cities are, the appreciation is 2 times cities that don't embrace and patronize art and culture. So there is a direct correlation between the city flourishing in commercial aspects and it embracing art. Because at the end of the day, who embraces art? People who have appreciation but also the means, or who are able to find the means. So to say that the art and culture scene has come down is not. Today there are, as I talked about, how many people visit the India Art Fair. And all of them are not seen as art collectors, but they appreciate art. It's not about just. I'd like to believe that there are new art forms. You may not call them art. There are, in the Leisure Valley and EDM Festival. Two of my colleagues were called. I don't like EDM. I hate them. I call it extremely dumb music. Okay. But point is, art has also evolved. Culture, in the narrow way we define arts and culture, I think we need to kind of broaden that because the city has evolved into new things which we may not account for as art. So in my view today, there are more invites to art and cultural initiatives than they were 10 years back. Again, arts and culture are also about time. Today, our time is divided into many more things than it was 10 years back. So, just want to say that it is not true in a factual way that there are less arts and culture activity. Actually, I haven't done research, but in my view, it will be many more initiatives now than they were 10 years back.
Yes, there will be many more now than there were 10 years back, definitely.
So
in the last 10 years or 20 years, as William was saying, things have really, culturally, there is a lot more. But my fear is that it should not go in one direction. That there should be freedom of expression. That is the main thing. That is the main fear that you are, as a writer, I am in great fear that what you write is always being censored. And the difficulty is not that they will censor me. The difficulty is that after they have censored me, when they arrest me, others get killed. This is what happens with me. When I was arrested for my book, there were other women who were writers who told me that they got writing. I continued to write because the worst had already happened. But there is a fear then, that if one person is censored, the others fear that and the worst type of censorship is self-censorship. Recently a reviewer has said about a book of mine, my recent book, there's a sentence in it that if you want to know what slow torture is, get your book translated in Japanese. I said that because when my book was translated in Japanese, the Japanese translator wrote me 200 letters. And each letter had 100 questions. Now, this was a joke. It was said with good humor. And she told me, and she wrote, this is a review written in a newspaper, that I am making racist remarks. So when the level of intolerance goes so low, it becomes very difficult to write or do anything, whether it is painting or it is journalism.
It's also becoming a piece of art.
Yes, journalism has become a piece of art. And
the North Korean journalism.
It's a mix of reality and fiction.
Mostly fiction. But I'd like to take a philosophical view of that. I think overall our society has become a society of dwarfs. Our leaders are no longer those tall giants. So they're, I can, in a private conversation, I can give you comparison. But the leaders of yesterday were giants. Today, mostly, I'm not talking of any particular leader, mostly are dwarfs. So if you have dwarfs as your leaders, their appreciation of anything will be very narrow-minded and limited to their own ambition and their own benchmark. So I don't think it's just about arts and culture, it's happened in every field.
जो नेता लोग हैं वो छोटे हैं और उनके पिछलग्गू दिक्कत तो ये है ना कि नेता ही जब छोटे लोग हैं आपके बौने हैं तो उनके जो हजारों हजार पिछलग्गू हैं वो आपके ऊपर आकर आपको नसीहत देते हैं कि आप क्या कीजिए और क्या नहीं कीजिए मुश्किल तब आती है
I'm an optimist in the city, like you are. I think there are things I miss about the city I used to love in the 1980s. I miss the ease of getting around, I miss the fresh air, obviously. Pollution is the elephant in the room that was mentioned so far. Probably the greatest hindrance to living comfortably in the yet, in so many ways, it's become a better city. So much more. Every night there's a book launch in the winter season. Amazing restaurants, cinemas springing up everywhere, fantastic bookshops, unparalleled in India. Everywhere else in India, they're closing down. Ramadvani in Lucknow hasn't been replaced, but yeah, every day new bookshops are opening, new literary festivals. I think the city is becoming richer and richer, and has more and more interesting artistic elite. So I'm an optimist for all the problems and for all the difficulties with the voters and the politics.
And dare I say that the T20ization of arts and culture. Not everybody is interested in the test form of, if I may, test form of arts and culture. Young people and a lot of people are interested in, let's say, the one-day version and the T20 version of arts and culture, right? So that has also happened, right? The snacking of arts and culture is happening rather than a full meal, so to say. So we have to appreciate that too.
So my time is over. The snack is over.
I think we can, one or two questions. We have some time for a few questions. Yes, please. We can take one by one. Yeah.
My question was, what is wonderful thing for the world to open up Delhi via the metro? The tyranny of the millions and majorities at town also plays a part in affecting the cultural resurrection and necropolis, as you said, of the city. And that's where the intellectuals, well, it's wonderful to see a lot of people finally appreciating the monuments. How do you view the solution for bringing in more civilization, where in a city where political characters for the elite and the fact that there are so many, the numbers always that is here to stay.
Yeah. So, who would like to take this? Would you like to address?
I don't think you can be prescriptive about culture. Government incentives and so on are not the things that create a great culture. What creates great culture is the sort of atmosphere that attracts writers and artists to a city, that makes it a nice city to be lived in. The Soviets tried very hard to create high culture by government grants and creating dachas and so on, where writers could go. But ultimately, it's the whizziness of somewhere like New York, which pulls in from around America every artistic figure. Those will become screenwriters and go in the opposite direction to that. And there's that sense of a great city being an attractive place. There's a wonderful story of, was it the young Azad coming from Panipat on foot, running away from his family and an arranged marriage he didn't like, to become part of Delhi in the 1840s. And he slept rough and just to be part of the city. And he said the city at that period had as great a galaxy of talent as it had during the great days of Akbar and Shah Jahan. And he talked eloquently about Azurda and Ghalib and Zork and all the great persons. He was pulled into the city by that brilliance. And I think a city gets an artistic momentum up and begins to attract others. And I think Delhi's doing that now in a way that was impossible to imagine 20 years ago.
But now you're talking about now, not the old Delhi. But even now you find that Delhi's become the hub of writing, for example, one thing. Allahabad is no longer there. Lucknow, Allahabad, Calcutta, all these places have become second to Delhi. I think the only place where literature is read and discussed most is Bihar. Patna, yes. I went to Patna to a festival, and I had recently written a novel called Miljul Man, and I just asked, how many people have read Miljul Man? 90% of the people raise their hands.
Because they don't have jobs there.
So I come from Patna.
I'm delighted to hear. Now that means that in Delhi, if everybody had jobs, then all culture will come to a stop.
First of all, ma'am, it's not a good thing to call people intellectual. It's not. These days, it's not a positive thing. Intellectuals are looked down upon in the current. No, I'm just kidding. It's all right. I'm just saying people may take offense to being called an intellectual. Yeah. One, I just want to say that, you know, if you look at the Hindu mythology, there is a Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma. I think you have to, there is a creative destruction happening of Delhi. I don't know if it's the right apt term, but it's reinventing. There is some parts of Delhi which will be there 30, 50, 100 years from now. But there are some parts which are being creatively resurrected. They're being destroyed and recreated. And like you could say it about the softer things also. Whether we like it or not like it, anyway, I am an immigrant today. So I accept Delhi for accepting me. So I can't have a point of view on that, but I think there is a creative destruction.
Okay, there are many. May I just take that one, please?
I have an experience to share and a question for Mr. Dalrymple. I was sitting in a cafe recently reading his book, The City of Jinns, and a lady, a stranger, she happened to overlook and she asked me, does it make sense to read this now? And I got caught by surprise because I was in the era of 1990s, and I said that everything that is written in the book about Kabutar Bazi, about the Hakim, intrigues me, and I want to go and find these people and see if they exist 20 years down the line and how much the destruction has happened. And she told me that she has lived in the house that Mr. Dalrymple lived in 1990s, and the landlord talked to her, and she had gone into a postpartum depression after her baby, and having discovered Mr. Dalrymple's book, she rediscovered art and culture, which was her only solace. And it's so heartening how strangers come together through mediums of writing and expression. And the question to Mr. Dalrymple is, if we were to rediscover your book 20 years down the line, or if you were to do that yourself, how do you think about it right now?
If you read the new edition, which is published by Bloomsbury, there is an introduction which exactly addresses this thing. And it's this odd sensation that when you write something, it is a description of something, it is a time capsule. At the time you're describing the world around you, and you think that that's how things will always be. But of course, it is locked in the moment you wrote it. And the Delhi of 1991 hasn't completely gone. I mean, almost everything that I write about in there, like the Kabutabazis, like the Sufis of Nizamuddin, the old calligraphers in the old city, they're still there. But and often in a very unchanged way, but there's just so many layers now added to the tree, outer rings, if you like, that have grown since then. Gurgaon, Noida, Faridabad, all these other Delhis. And now, look, I'm told that from the air, if you discount the political boundaries of the state of Delhi and UP and so on, and Haryana, we are now the second biggest urban space in the world after Greater Tokyo. In terms of a city seen from space. I'm an optimist that the city is going very much from strength to strength, and the sort of discussions that we have today here, and the tours that are every day on my Instagram come up, 5 more tours around Nizamuddin, or only on Thursday we had the Sundar Nursery restored by the Aga Khan. I mean, there's a wonderful sensation of rebirth, I feel, despite the pollution, despite everything else.
So have those layers of Kabutar.
Yeah, we can just, can I just, because we are running out of time, may I just take one last question and then, Yeah.
So my question is about where you think the arts and culture scene in Delhi is going with access and accessibility in terms of elitism, in terms of elitism, in terms of the dominance of English language publishing in the media and arts and culture. And that question comes from this concern about how arts and culture in this country, especially I think in the left-leaning intellectual scene, isolates people of several different classes below. So do you think Delhi is moving towards a more elitist arts and culture scene, or is it actually moving towards being something that's more accessible?
Yeah, is art and culture in very democratic in Delhi? I think, Mridula ji, would you like to?
Art and culture is democratic, more democratic now than it was earlier. Earlier it was elitist because it was dependent on the patronage of the state. But the problem is that, as you said, it is the English language, so that it restricts it excludes a whole lot of people. But it's not as if we are dependent on the English language. There is a strong Hindi, हिंदी ही नहीं, भोजपुरी, मैथिली और कितनी भाषाएं हैं, आंचलिक भाषाएं हैं, उन सब पे एक्टिविटी होती है। और सब में कल्चर खूब काफ़ी मजबूत है, पुख्ता है और जिंदा है और जिंदा दिल है। तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हम अंग्रेजी पर मुनहसर करते हैं किसी लिए, अंग्रेजी पर निर्भर करते हैं। अपनी चीज़ें भी खूब पुख्ता चल रही हैं और पुख्तगी की तरफ बढ़ रही हैं, क्योंकि एक ज़माना था जब बहुत अंग्रेजी से हम दबे कुचले महसूस करते थे, वैसा अब नहीं है। जो अंग्रेजी बोलते हैं अपनी खुशी से बोलते हैं, और कभी कभी उनको ये गम भी होता है कि वो दूसरी भाषाएं नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं, लेकिन वो छूटे जा रहे हैं।
Thank you. I think we have completely run out of time. I was very tempted to answer some of your questions of, urbanism and population and the whole tyranny of numbers. It's a very serious question, I think, and the issue of, shrinking of cultural space or sort of elitism and all that. But one of the great things that happens is by doing these kind of festivals is that you're able to enrich yourself in many ways. And I would like to point out to you that you read the Shahar in English. Okay, and we have talked about Mridula ji complaining that she's the only one speaking Hindi. So I'm tempted to speak that Shahar in Hindi before I end this Ummeed Tak Umeed and correct you, because I was corrected similarly in the last words in the garden when I inaugurated the festival with a program on I was talking about Sadarang, the great composer of 18th century, and I started the discussion by saying that क्या बुदोबाश पूछो हो पूरब के साकिनों, हमको गरीब जानकर हंस पुकार कर, दिल्ली जो एक शहर था आलम में इंतखाब, रहते थे मुंतखाब जहां रोजगार के, उसको फलक ने छीन कर वीरान कर दिया, हम रहने वाले हैं उसी उजड़े दियार के. Now this is the thing which has been circulating for years, as though Mir said that. But Shamsur Rahman Farooqi, who was sitting in the first row, immediately corrected me and said that this is not a Mir Sheikh.
But it is in Assad. It's in Abi Hayat.
I know, but it is not a Mir Sheikh. It has been added into his. So, we sort of explained this whole phenomena that just like Kabir has a Bani which has grown. I mean, yesterday I think someone mentioned it in the talk. So is the case with Mir and many other great poets, and Ghalib perhaps would have the same phenomenon. Somebody would have written something. So, नहीं, गालिब की शेर की बोली नहीं रही है. मैं मीर का बोल रहा हूँ. जी.
वो बादशाह जफर साहब के नाम नफस था. फिर अभी वो जावेद अख्तर साहब को उनकी ओरिजिनल स्क्रिप्ट मिल गई उनके ग्रैंडफादर की, तो वो उनके नाम आ गया, अपने उनके जावेद अख्तर साहब के ग्रैंडफादर के नाम आ गया. ये फेमस लाइन द
But you issue
Irfan Habib claims that these verses, it's in dispute. I know that Javed Akhtar says that, but Irfan Habib says that they are recorded having been recited on the steps of the Jama Masjid in the 1860s.
Yeah, but
that debate is open.
Yeah, but the larger point is that I think authorship in the Indian artistic context is not very important. That is why we don't know the names of architects who build those temples or many of the things in Indian art and culture. Or bandishes, you add the name, but it's not so important. In fact, earlier people used to sing rags, and if you ask them kaun sa rag ga rahe ho, they would get upset. Kya zarurat hai puchne ka? Aap suniyega na. Enjoy kijiye usko. Anyway, thank you very much. The time is complete.
Totally spellbound.